Former US President Donald Trump is today a convicted criminal. Joining me is Professor of Political Science at Cypress College, Peter Mathews. Peter, the situation is Donald Trump at this point is not allowed to vote, but he can still be president.
Well, he can vote if he doesn't serve any time in prison in New York. He can vote in Florida. But if he serves time, then he cannot vote in Florida. He can be president. He can run for president, he can win and be president. But I think people should be reminded of some things that he said in the past. And this is very remarkable, especially given the context of what's going on today. I'll read directly from this quote. President Trump once said, when he was running for office in 2016, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? That was in Sioux City, Iowa. So he had a lot of confidence. He can do certain things and not have any repercussions. Well, this time, a process was followed, a democratic process, small d, that we had a grand jury indict him. It was done through proper means. And after the indictment, he went through a trial with 12 jury members of his own peers, and he was convicted on 34 counts, felony counts. So the process was there. He had defense. He had a defensive lawyers that were quite good, as well as he had the judge bending over backwards to put up with some of his egregious behavior at times in the court. So I think he had a very fair trial. Some would say he did not. Of course, his supporters would say he did not. But at this point, we need to accept this as Americans, all of us, and go forward. And then let's see what happens. He's still, the sentencing is coming up, and he maybe he'll get a lot lighter sentence so he can actually campaign fully. Who knows? We don't know yet. But the process has to take its place. So the rule of law principle is really important here, Tim, that no one is above the law. And we saw that actually applied this time.
But he's walked out and for 40 minutes said it was rigged. He said the judge who's actually going to hand down the sentence in July is corrupt. He brought Joe Biden into it, saying this is all about politics. What do you make of all of that? He's basically saying that the system's broken.
He's saying the system is illegitimate. It's even worse than broken. He's saying that it doesn't even apply to him or to people as a whole who break the law and are convicted of it. So he's really doing something very dangerous, and that is delegitimizing the political system and the legal system, especially the courts. And that's something a democracy has to cherish. A court system that's independent, that's free and fair, and one that's one of the three branches of government. We have a system of checks and balances here, and this is one of the major three branches, and he's saying this court system is all rigged. He says it was all corrupt and that Joe Biden was behind this. Not a shred of evidence to prove that President Biden was behind this trial or involved in any way in this trial. And yet he says that, and many of his supporters will follow that, hopefully. But there is a middle of the road. There's an independent voter group, Tim, that makes a big difference. The independent voter group, a poll was taken by YouGov, and that was taken right after the trial ended and the verdict was reached. And people were asked, do you agree with the verdict of the jury that President Trump was guilty of these charges? And 48% said he was guilty, 25% said he was innocent. And that's independent voters, in the middle. The other voters have hardened their positions. They're going to vote against him or for him. But that 10% or so in the middle are the key voters right now, if you look at the election. But legitimacy is very important here about the rule of law. And that's the key thing. He's blaming the system instead of blaming himself and what he did.
And it's all going to come down to about 5 or 6 states, isn't it? Basically, there's some rusted on, definite Democratic states, Republican states. It's going to come down to these swing states.
It certainly is. It's about 6 or 7 states, actually, including states like Georgia and Arizona and North Carolina. These states are states in which Joe Biden won by either 1% or 2%, or President Trump won it last time by a couple of percent. These states, and it's those states that will make all the difference in the Electoral College vote. Because as you know, our system is set up where the electors are allocated to each state based on population and 2 senators together. So these states can add up quickly if they go in one direction, or if a few voters just switch their position and give all those votes in Georgia, let's say 12 or 20 votes to Biden or Trump. That could make a big difference in the final outcome of the total number of electoral votes, of which they have to win 270 electoral votes for the majority. And it's those swing states that makes all the difference, Tim. You're absolutely right.
This only happened a day ago. Could this be the turning of the Queen Mary for Donald Trump, in the sense of everything to do with courtrooms, and any time we saw him even say a word regarding the cases that have been brought against him, he's been getting sugar hits? Is this a turn, do you think? Is this a turn against him?
It could be, but only with a very small segment of voters. We don't know if that'll be enough to turn the election against him. We have, like I said, we have to look at that segment in the middle, the independent voters, and a few Republican voters themselves said they would not vote for President Trump if he were convicted of a felony. It's about 5 or 6, 7% of the Republican voters said they would not vote for him if he were convicted. And now this has happened. But let's see if they stick to their principles and their concern, the particular commitment to not do that. And we'll have to just wait and see, Tim. We really don't know. As the polling will show us as we go along month by month to see in the next 5 months if the poll changes in any way or not. And there's a lot going on now. The nomination of the two candidates for formal conventions coming up in July and August, that's huge. And the debate on June 27th, all that can make a difference. We'll have to see how this turns out.
You'd have to be a creative writer of a mini-series if you were to come up with what has happening in real time, in the real world. It's quite extraordinary. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you so much, Tim. Talk to you later.